Music is passion.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Wonder of Anime podcast. I'm your host, Lisa. I am a multimedia anime content creator, and my work spans across my blog, my YouTube channel, and of course, this podcast. On this show, I interview your favorite anime content creators, voice actors, and other notable figures from the anime industry. Recording this as an aside, if you hear little cute baby noises during the intro, that is because, things are a little bit different now. I just wanted to put this little disclaimer. Do not worry, the interview does not have any baby noises. First off, I just want to thank everyone for the warm welcome that I received in coming back. You guys know that I do this podcast for me. It is something that brings me a lot of joy. I love talking to people. I love interviews. I'm a storyteller at heart. And I really didn't expect, I don't know what I was expecting, but when you don't make content or put out content for a while, it's inevitable to feel like, oh, you fell off. And unfortunately, a lot of the reality with making content online is that if you don't post, people kind of just forget about you. And that's okay. That's to be expected. So the fact that I got such positive feedback and so many people saying that they're excited for the show to come back and that they missed it, I was in shambles. Am I always in shambles? Absolutely. But I was especially in shambles. So I just want to thank everyone so much for all the tweets, all the Instagrams, all the texts. Y'all the real MVP, for real. This week in anime, I feel like since last week, I watched a lot of anime. Granted, I was mostly rewatching, but still. So last week, I ended up rewatching Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime, the movie, and then I also rewatched season 2 of Demon Slayer, all dubbed, which if you guys know me, I'm cool with dubs, but primarily I watch everything subbed. So watching those dubbed was a really good experience. I think for the most part, both dubs for both of those are just absolutely amazing. The Demon Slayer one, there's a couple voices that I feel like I'm meh about, but other than those characters, I think the cast did such a phenomenal job. Jujutsu Kaisen, the voice acting on that show and in the movie is just top tier. And I would say this, dub gets obviously a bad rep. I think specifically based on the dubs from us growing up, us being millennials, where the specifications were different, the needs were different, the pay was different. Not that the pay is much better now, but these ain't our dubs from our generation. And they just get better and better, and these voice actors are absolutely phenomenal. That being said, it was such a really good experience watching it dub, because y'all know sub is amazing, but you look away for 1 second, you miss everything that happened. You miss all the dialogue. When you're watching it dubbed, you're able to focus on different things and pull in different things without worrying that you're missing the dialogue that is happening. So all that to say, it's such a great experience rewatching. Last year, I really became a rewatcher. That was not me. I was not somebody that rewatched anime. But now that's who I am. And I'm actually, are there 10 million animes on my list that I need to get through? Absolutely. But I don't have an issue rewatching stuff. I also, finally, after over a year and 5 months, finished My Hero Academia season 5. Now, y'all know me. I absolutely love My Hero Academia, specifically the anime. I haven't read the manga yet, and you know that I won't until later. But I was watching season 5 last year, and if you don't remember, because obviously it was a year ago, the first arc in season 5 is the training arc where it's class A and B against each other in like the teams, and that wasn't, I wouldn't say it was boring, but it definitely moved slow because it's like one day and it's over 12 episodes of one day, and all these different classes, all these different heroes just battling it out, and strategies and techniques, the real technical part of My Hero Academia. And while that's enjoyable, as it was airing, just wasn't something that I was like pushing to watch. So last year, I definitely put it on hold, I think after 5 or 6 episodes. But as y'all know, My Hero Academia season 6 started this past weekend. So I was like, all right, I need to finish season 5. And wow, after I got through that first training arc, that second arc of My Hero Academia, where, that second arc with the Todoroki family and Shigaraki origin story, the League of Villains, the Liberation Party, that, man, I was crying like every episode. So definitely expect some type of content about that. I did have my season 5 thread where I kind of wrapped up a lot of the major points and feelings that I have, and I'll include a link to that in the description of this episode. But y'all, I'm still like so many feels. And then of course season 6 started off with a freaking banger. Mirko is everything, and I'm just not, this season's gonna be crazy, and I'm just not ready, but I'm so excited for it. Anyways, that's the anime information that I have for y'all of the anime that I partook in this past week. Now, let's get into this episode that I have for you guys today. So, right off top, I'm going to give you guys a little warning, as I said in the, I said this last week in my episode, that this episode specifically was recorded back in January, and a lot has happened since then. This is an interview with the amazing, incredible Rob from the Dad Needs to Talk podcast. It's also a YouTube channel. He has blog posts. Rob be doing it all. He's also guest on like 10 million thousand podcasts. Like, Rob is absolutely the best. I love him as a content creator. I love him personally. Like, he's just that dude. And like I said, we recorded this in January. So the original episode, half of it was my regular interview style, where we get to know Rob, the origin of the podcast, his anime origin, all that good stuff. And then the other half of the episode is me and him diving into Blue Period, the anime on Netflix. We recorded it like the week after the season 1 finished, and it was amazing. However, for the purposes of this episode, I cut it off right after me and him do our interview portion, just because I'm still not decided what I want to do with that blue period portion, because I know a season 2 is going to be coming out, I think. So I don't know if I want to save it for then. It's going to come out. I don't know if it's going to be a bonus episode, or if I'm going to maybe turn it into a YouTube video, because that part is also really, really good. But I did want to give you this heads up, because it feels like the podcast just ends, and it's like pretty, I think, standard length. It's like 40 minutes of amazing conversation, but then it kind of just ends and there's no conclusion, like, hey, follow Rob, or because the original ending, I always ask my guests, like, what can we look forward for you, like what projects you have coming up, and that was over 9 months ago. So like, who knows who knows what happened with that. So I just want to give you guys that little warning, that if it feels like it just ended and there was more, we immediately transitioned into talking about Blue Period, and I will find a home for that portion of the interview, because it is absolutely amazing. I just need to find out where to put it and how to put it out there. But I just want to thank Rob for obviously coming on my podcast, always being amazing. And like I mentioned this on the podcast, me and Rob are friends personally. I consider imagine he's like, girl, we're not friends. I consider him a friend personally. You know, he was somebody that checked on me during my hiatus, checked on me during my pregnancy, always making sure that I'm good on a personal mental health level, you know, aside from all this creative stuff. And Rob is just so amazing in and out of content creating. He is a gem in this community, and I am so glad and so happy that you guys are finally going to be able to listen to this conversation, because I specifically been sitting on it because it is just amazing and it deserves to be out in its full glory. So, Rob, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Everyone listening, thank you so much for coming back. And I hope that you enjoy this episode. And I'll see you guys next week. I, of course, want to welcome you to my show and
Yes.
ask, who are you? If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Robert. I'm also known as Father of Vash, because the name of my show, my podcast, my YouTube channel, all that stuff is Dad Needs to Talk. And so I am a dad. I'm a father of five, three boys, twin girls. And the reason why I go by Father of Vash is because my youngest son, my 4-year-old, is named Vash after Vash the Stampede from Trigon. So favorite anime, favorite character, or one of my favorite anime, favorite character. But yeah, so normally by day, I'm an IT professional. So I currently work within, I guess it'd be classified as like medical IT. So I do IT work within, or I guess like for a hospital clinic network. So that's what I do by day. Of course, husband, family stuff. And then, of course, my podcast and YouTube channel, which I kind of get in where I can fit in.
Don't we all right now?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'm currently a resident of the DFW, Dallas Fort Worth area here in Texas. So born and raised Texas native, and yeah.
I feel like all the faves are down in Texas. Like, I was like, do I need to move to Texas? Because everyone I care about is in Texas right now.
I know. So it's a lot of us here, and I'm steadily finding more and more people feel like every day, if not every week.
Yes, like it's just that's where y'all are. And I'm just like, but there's like some hesitancies with Texas as a state, not the people as a
Oh yeah,
state. So I'm like, maybe not, but
yeah,
it does sound tempting when like everybody's in Texas. I was just in Texas. It's awesome there. But I want to know, what is your anime journey? Do you remember the first anime you watched? How did you end up as now an anime fan?
yeah. So man, I'm trying to think. I was probably I was around the age of 6, 7 years old, somewhere in there roughly. And like a lot of people, say, kind of started off with stuff that didn't necessarily at the time know was classified as anime, but of course you just know, hey, this feels different, the vibe is different, it just hits different. And so for me, a lot of those, a couple of the big ones was like Pokemon and Dragon Ball. And so for me, it was every day, uh, getting off the bus, running straight to the TV, Dragon Ball and Zoids and whatever else was coming on in the afternoons. And then from there, as I got a little bit older and stuff, Toonami really came into play really heavily. And so a lot of my Saturday nights was watching Toonami. And that's kind of where I got even more exposure to a wider variety of stuff. So that's when I started getting to like the Inuyashas and the Death Notes and stuff like that. And for me though, like most of the time or over those years, I was kind of a silent anime fan because it was like, okay, I'm watching this stuff, don't really have people to really talk to about it. I guess I maybe had like a couple of close buddies that we talk about like Dragon Ball stuff with a little bit, but nowhere near like what I do now, where I'm just like, hey, rocking my anime tees, naming my kids after anime characters, nowhere near that level. And then I felt like it kicked up an even higher notch when I went to college, because like I said, I primarily was just watching what was on TV and stuff at the time, but I kind of lucked out me being in the tech field. Chances are when you go to school, you're probably going to encounter a lot of other nerds and stuff. And so luckily all of my roommates in college were also big nerds. So I had people to game with, watch anime with. It was awesome. It was beautiful. And they exposed me to so much more stuff. And, though they had me a little bit scared at first because my first day experience in college. So originally, I think, yeah, that first semester, I was the only person of color in my dorm room. And the first night I was there, they were doing some type of like glow stick rave.
No.
So,
Canceled.
I'm in my room chilling, door closed. And of course, I hear lots of hype music and stuff. So I creep open the door. It's pitch black, but it's glowing. I'm like, what the heck? And I just see them and they're dancing, glow stick. So I was like, y'all are weird.
Close
Yeah.
this door.
But as we got to talk and know each other, I was like, okay, y'all are actually really cool, and so yeah. And then, here I am now, a married nerd and living life with a podcast where I get to talk to everybody about what I love.
Yes, you like unlocked. So funny talking to people and like you like unlock memories because I remember too. I also was and I don't think I'm that much younger than you, but
Mhm.
I remember like watching the Pokemon and Digimon and Cardcaptor Sakura and
Yeah.
same as you were like and a lot of us were we didn't know it was anime, but you could tell it was different. And I think that
Mhm.
one element that really made anime different, even though they tried to not do this, like I like specifically like I know for Cardcaptor Sakura, they tried to edit the show because anime is very episodic and it goes in
Mhm.
order. And American cartoons don't do that. You can pick up an American cartoon anytime,
Yes.
any place. You don't it doesn't matter what happened in the last episode.
Mhm.
American anime obviously has to go in order. And with I know specifically with Cardcaptor Sakura when they dubbed it they cut out a bunch of stuff. They changed the
Mhm.
order of the episodes and they really try to make it like you could pick, but you really couldn't pick up and go anywhere.
Yes.
And I remember specifically like years later, because I saw Cardcaptor Sakura, I think I was like 6 or 7. And then later on, when I was, I think in no, I read the manga maybe when I was like in 5th or 6th grade.
Mhm.
And then I maybe like a couple years later then when I was in college I was like I'm going to rewatch the whole series and I
Yeah.
was like why don't I remember these episodes and I was like oh yeah cuz you know how and thank God for nerds because nerds will be here's a Tumblr site dedicated to what the dub was what the original was what was cut out
Yeah.
and I was like oh my god like y'all cut out 10 episodes and you want to start the American version episode 6 like what is happening so
Yeah.
you saying that
Yes.
unlock that memory. But I always love people's anime journey because some of us start so differently. Like I've had people on this podcast who like, oh, I grew up with anime, my family watched anime. And then there's other people it's like, oh, I was the lone anime fan in my life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you kind of talking about the, like I said, like the TV stations still kind of like remixing and changing stuff, whatever. That's why like now, especially being in the community and the circle that we both are kind of in, I'm kind of getting better perspective on some stuff that I watched as a kid. And honestly, there's already I'm kind of already building like a list of like some stuff that I'm like, you know what? I watched this, but I didn't. Watch it, So it's like, okay, I need to kind of okay, with 30 plus years under my belt, refocused perspective, maybe go back to some stuff that I watched as a kid and start from, like you said, from the beginning and see, okay, what really was going on with this, or reading the manga and stuff. So yeah, so I definitely have a list of some stuff that I'm like, okay, I need to kind of work through some of these things because I'm like, okay, I kind of remember these, big key moments that everybody talks about. But when people start talking about like certain specific characters or moments or whatever, I'm like, I don't remember that happening.
You be feeling like, was I existing? I had that moment where during COVID, and I plan to continue this series. I started this series on YouTube where I was rewatching Inuyasha, and then every season I would do a video because I always loved Inuyasha, Adult Swim, but
Mhm.
I didn't realize that maybe I was watching the same 10 episodes all the time because after like the first season, I'm like watching, I think I got up to season 3 in my video series. There was like, I was like, I don't remember any of this. And I'm like, I could have sworn I used to like stay up late to watch Inuyasha, and I literally
Yeah.
only remembered like 5 episodes. And I think too, a lot of times like we fill in the blank, or like we like now because of the internet, like, oh, so and so character, but then it's like, so you think you know the whole story, and then you're watching it, you're like, I don't remember this, I don't remember this, but you watched it. It's kind
Yeah.
of funny. Like I also too have similar plans after my Clamp series. This might be in 2 years because it's taken me a long time to get through the Clamp series. I want to do like a shojo rewatch of all like the
Mm,
shojo that I used to watch like in my middle school years, because there's some stuff there too that I'm probably remembering way different than actually happened.
yes. Yes. I'm right there with you.
It's like, and thing too, there's this one podcast I think you mentioned that you listen to. I don't, if you haven't, you should the Anime in America podcast.
Mhm.
So
I gotta check them out.
you it's a short series. It's
Mhm.
hosted by Yodoye Travis from Get in the Bot,
Okay.
and it's from Crunchyroll, and it does like literally the start of anime in America, like back in the
Mm,
60s, 70s, all the way up until now. And it's something I know you would love it because it's
yeah.
geeky. It's about the industry. It's about like back in college days where people were making fan dubbed or fan subbed VHS tapes. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they explained there was this one anime that they talked about that people in America loved, and they figured out that it actually was two different anime in Japan, and they merged it to be one anime.
Uh,
Like shit like that. You're gonna love it.
oh
I think
wow.
it's like 10 episodes or 8.
Hmm.
Definitely, I'm gonna send you the link because you're gonna be obsessed with
Okay.
it. But it really is really good. But it just goes to show you like we're in this thing, but like anime's been here, it's been us. And a lot of times, like, I think we're a little bit spoiled too with how anime is now, and people are like sub versus dub, and it's like, yeah, we had to take what we could get back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. And for me, and without getting too deep into that whole discussion on there, but for me, like with the whole sub and dub thing, I'm like, I don't care how you watch it or whatever. For me, I'm of the mindset of the more languages or the more ways people can experience something or whatever, that means more fans for the series, which means that, hey, the series that we all love gets a chance to live another day. Because there's so many series where it's like, well, it doesn't have enough support, cancel it. Whereas like, oh, hey, this series is in English, sub, Portuguese, German, whatever. Well, then that just means, hey, let's all rally together no matter what the language is, and let's keep this series going. So yeah.
Yes, and that's such a true point too, because I feel like a lot of people at the end of the day don't realize like it's an anime industry. Like the industry is to make money, and
Mhm.
if people aren't talking about shows, if people aren't excited about shows, and that's why too, like sometimes you be seeing stuff like, especially in like fandoms, where you be like, I never heard this anime a day in my life, but there's the 5 girls on Tumblr keeping that anime alive. They making
Yes.
the gifs, they got the fanfics, like it's so true what you say. Like that's what keeps it going. I also too am just like, girl, I don't care how you watch it. I know how I watch it, and I be changing it up sometimes because I'm like, you know what, I got stuff to do. But I want to
Yeah.
watch this. Let
Yeah.
me put that dub on real quick. But I
Yes.
did want to transition into how did you decide to start your podcast and essentially like your brand, because you also have a YouTube channel. What
Mhm.
was that like where you were like, I need to talk about these things? So I feel like everybody has that moment where you're like, I can't be the only one. I gotta tell somebody this.
Yeah. So in general, like me doing the podcast stuff, whatever, it's something that has kind of like been somewhere in my mind for I feel like years, just because because I've been involved in different communities and stuff, because like I have like I had or I still have like a small Facebook group that like, hey, a lot of people that I've known and met in real life, I added, we share nerdy stuff, um, certain Facebook groups. I'm doing weekly threads for all the new manga chapters and stuff every Sunday. So it's like I was already kind of doing a lot of that stuff. And so kind of what led me to finally do it. And I'm not gonna go too deep into it.
You better go
Just
deep. Get in them fields. I'm just kidding. Whatever you're comfortable with.
yeah. So because some people that know me or have this in my podcast, whatever, kind of know what the story is. But just of course, hey, new platform, new people. So basically, in the 6 months or so, because I started the podcast March of 2021, so I'm getting close to hit my 1 year anniversary. Well, the 6 months prior to that, I kind of experienced a lot of tragedy and stuff that happened because I lost my older sister passed away. My wife's grandfather, who was pretty much like her dad, passed away. Had some other family stuff happen in between there, and then I lost my mom January last year. So it's like okay, I lost my mom, my sister within a matter of months, and so and all that happened like leading up to the uh a little bit after that, we had the crazy freak snow ice storm down here in the South. So it's like I literally like just went from like one crazy thing to another for months and months back to back to back. And that was like super physically and emotionally, mentally draining. And so honestly, I really just had a moment to where it was like to where I was kind of like just sitting around the house and my mind was wandering around, of course, start wandering, start thinking about family stuff, start getting sad. And so it was like, okay, Robert, either you do something about this, don't know at the moment, it was like, okay, don't know what, but you need to do something. Otherwise, might end up finding myself lost in despair, so to speak. And so I ended up coming to the idea of the podcast because I was kind of talking with my wife and stuff. And I was like, you know what? This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I need to just do something. I need to find a outlet of some sort to put my heart and soul into. And so that's what began my podcast. And so, I started it with honestly just my cell phone, a $10-$20 pop filter I got off of Amazon, and that was it. That's where it all began. And so, I did my episode 0, which was just kind of like my introduction of who I am and all that stuff. And then, like I said, I kind of, I just did that for more of a sense of, hey, this is something that is therapeutic for me. If somebody listens, cool. If not, I ain't tripping. But over the course of those days and weeks, seeing the numbers, just like a little ping here. Oh, okay, one listener, 5 listeners, so on and so forth. And it building from not just, because we can look at the analytics and see like where people are they listen to it or whatever. It went from just, clearly that is friends and family, because I could tell the spots across, where people listen to whatever, to where it's like, oh, somebody overseas happened to listen to this episode, or hey, somebody in California, New York, wherever. And it's like, oh, okay, I am saying something and somebody is on the other side receiving what I'm having to say. And so that was the start of it. And then what kind of started building that up even more was, something that, we all kind of talk about from time to time, kind of like a shoot your shot type of thing. And so a podcast that I've been on so many times at this point, but the My Hero Academia podcast, I been listening to them for a long time. And so they had posted like one of their episodes, maybe like a few weeks into me doing the podcast. And I were commenting like, hey, it'd be really cool if someday, I'm thinking like a year or two, because I'm thinking like, hey, I need to put in some time before anybody will want to collaborate or whatever. So I'm like, hey, someday it would be really dope if I could maybe be on y'all show or whatever. Well, the host, Kendra, she was so nice, and she ended up DMing me within a day or two, like, hey, I checked out your stuff. You seem like a cool dude. Do you want to come on? And that's kind of what led to me starting the process as far as like, okay, now I'm not just doing stuff solo. I need to be set up to where I can collaborate with other people. And that's when I started investing in the equipment, the microphone, better laptop, all that stuff. And it kind of took off from there. Now, the YouTube channel part of it, that kind of came into play, I want to say maybe like towards July, so maybe a few months into doing the podcast. I had kind of thought about like, okay, you know what? I enjoy doing the podcast, and I've, aside from just friends and family, whatever, have met people that have been like, hey, it's cool to see another dad, another black dad, another dad talking about manga, anime, or whatever. And so I started in the time leading up to me actually to starting the YouTube channel myself, whatever, I was searching on YouTube for just like different people of color that were doing what we do now. And at least like not easily, I wasn't finding too many people. Of course, I found, like the Anime Tea and Chase the Dark Sage and a handful of other people along the way. And it's like, okay, we are out here, but there could be more of us. There should be more of us. And so I was like, yes, my voice is getting out there, but I also want people to see me as well. And so that's kind of where the YouTube channel kind of came into play, to where it was like, you know what, it is important for my voice to be out there and to be heard, but I think it's also important for people to see me and get to know who I am as a person, the person behind the content, the person behind the microphone. And that's kind of what led to the YouTube channel kind of growing. And so, yeah, I kind of been rocking those two things kind of in tandem for these many months and stuff. So, and been loving it.
Thank you so much for sharing that, for being vulnerable. I think I was getting emotional. I am such a crybaby.
Yeah.
So you see me like get emotional. But I think it's something that is like human nature. Like, it obviously dealing with grief and loss, like we all deal with those things differently, but this also highlights like the importance of having an outlet, or having that pain and being able to channel that into something else. Because you were right, you had two choices. You could just sit and be despaired and grieve that way, or you can put your energy in something else. You're still going to be sad, you're still going to be grieving, but now you feel like you can move differently. And I think I think is also important to highlight. And I think I always say, like, I'm an anime content creator, but I believe that like my purpose is like storytelling. And it's like these stories are important because it may be somebody that they may be holding back because they lost a loved one, or they have and they don't know, like they don't know what to do with that. And it's like you hear your story and that can motivate somebody else. And I think what you said about seeing other people of color is something that you said like struck out to me. It's like seeing other people of color, but then seeing different people of color. Like, not all Black people are the same. We're not a monolith. Like, there's people who do this and there's people who do that. Like you said, you're a dad. A lot of people who talk about anime are not parents or they're young. Like they, it's different when you got grown money at your disposal versus, somebody else whose maybe parents are buying their manga or they have different resources. So I love that. And I always find you entertaining because you being a dad, but like, I'm like, I guess I should realize that people my age range are parents, because I'm like, man, you a dad, but it's like I could be a mom at any moment. Like you're not that far off.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to add as well with, like I said, me kind of, getting out there, putting myself out there, whatever, is that connecting with people. And along the way, I connected with some very awesome people. A couple I do want to specifically shout out and point out. One of them is Steve from Inside the Mind of a Blurred. And then another one, she doesn't have her real name out there, but she goes by the alias Roy, ROI, and she is the host of Let Me Tell You Something Bitch podcast. I love her. And both of them kind of like I said, me through going through stuff and talking or whatever, I connected with both of them because both of them had experienced similar losses themselves in the past. And they were like, hey, I know where you're coming from, or I can relate and stuff like that. And so not only being in this space, but also finding people that have been through certain things like you have and can also provide some, some perspective as far as, okay, this is, how I handled the situation, or this is what I went through. And it can kind of, it just gives you somebody to talk to that kind of, somewhat understands in some way, like, okay, I have lost, a sibling as well, or a parent as well. And so this is how I kind of got through it. And so, having them two specifically along the way over this last year and stuff, whatever, has been another really awesome support. I guess it's the best way to put it, where just having that support from them and just everybody in the community. Because like I feel like the space that we are in, the circle of people that we are in, it's kind of like a pack. Like we all kind of, support each other's content and stuff. We all support each other as people, and we look out for each other towards like, okay, you know what? Hey, I haven't seen so-and-so tweet in a while or post to Instagram or whatever. Hey, does anybody know what's going on with them? Whatever. It's not just, you just disappearing and nobody's like, oh, I ain't seen that person in a while. Oh, well, it's like, no, somebody's like, yo, hey, SOS, put out the call. What is going on? And I love that, to where, it's like, yes, we all do need to, take breaks and stuff, whatever, and separate ourselves from social media or whatever at a time. But just the fact that like, okay, hey, somebody is out there thinking of us enough to be like, hey, is Lisa okay? Is Robert okay? All right, okay, cool. All right, you just taking a break. All right, just making sure you need me, holler at me. So yeah, that's just an awesome thing I just love about the community.
You just made me like cry.
I'm sorry.
No, because I literally was just thinking about this earlier, because I haven't been me and Rob, we're in my Discord, which I'll have a link to in the description of the episode. But we talk every day. I'm so used to talking to you and the rest of the, like, I really love our Discord. I think it's it's all the people who are peers on Twitter, but just in Discord. And so you guys knew in Discord, but other people I haven't been on social media. So I've been just logging in on my computer, posting links, and then immediately logging off. I'm not checking notifications. And today I logged in to post something, and I guess somebody put something and I was getting tagged in it. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want people to think like I'm ignoring them. Like, let me just put it, because I said it on my podcast, like I'm going on hiatus, but I know people don't listen to every episode. So I'm like, okay, I was like, hold on, let me formally be like, hey, I'm not on social media. I'm not ignoring you. But it's just, this is the one thing I feel like too, and I've definitely gotten this perspective being older, is this sense of community online. And especially for me specifically, and you say this too, because of COVID, during this time is kind of where we shifted, we launched these brands. It's I have met people, we came together because of the anime community online, but these are real life people that I have their numbers in my phone. And I think of Erica from Sundari. I always shout her out, but me and her met on Twitter, and literally I can send her a voice memo 5:00 in the morning, 10 minutes long, and she'll listen to she'll be like, girl, what's happening? I think of Naja, I think of all these people that I've met, and that sense of community, these are, and I think it's just it's obviously not everyone is like this, so you always have to have discernment, but there's some really good people out there, and it's just your heart is just so warm.
Yes, and it's like another thing I just love, and once again, like you said, just warms my heart so much. I've been within the community and stuff long enough now to where I'm hearing my name brought up on the podcast that I'm listening to. And so I just be doing my chores, this stuff, whatever. And like, yeah, so shout out to Rob. Dad needs to talk. I'm like, rewind 10 seconds. Wait, what? And that it is just so awesome that it's like, okay, not only, are people, supporting, resharing stuff, whatever, but people are actually paying attention and being like, hey, I remember when you talked about this on your YouTube video or your podcast or whatever, or like the other week, the Comedy House podcast crew, because they're also here in Dallas and stuff, and I'm super close with them, but like they came back from their hiatus last week, and they freaking sang me happy birthday on the podcast. And I'm like, it was like, of course, like they were talking about Ranking of Kings, which, hey, everybody know I'm part of the Boji gang, support Ranking of Kings, watch it. And so I'm like, oh, okay, my name in Ranking of Kings, nothing new. And then Bilal, one of the hosts, was like, oh yeah, and by the way, it's also Rob's birthday. And then Crystal and Ren, they was, oh yeah, hey, happy birthday. And then they broke out into song. And Ren can sing. And so I'm like, oh, hearing that soulful tone. And I'm like, I love y'all. I love this community. So
yes. And it's just, and there's two, like, it's that, and it's also like anytime somebody be like, tag creatives, everybody tagging us, we got 20 tags, and it's just like there's always like this, I don't know if it's like a quote, I'm such a quote person, but it's like, like the real people are the people that are rooms that you're not in, and they're speaking your name and they're trying to get you in that door. And even sometimes like a tag can go such a long way, or just like put people on a radar, or like retweeting stuff. That's why like I feel like I have such a like bad taste with not social media, like the people on it, but like the platforms themselves and the algorithms, because I feel like they're doing a lot to like tear down communities because they're trying to get a paycheck. But that's a whole nother dissertation for another time. But it, you know what I mean? Like there's opportunities that I've gotten because somebody retweeted me, or somebody like said that they saw that I had whoever on my podcast, and they're like, well, if you had so and so on your podcast, then I bet you're cool people, because I'm cool with that. And you know what I mean? Like that connection is just so, I think, important. And it's something that I will say that it's not easy to foster if you're not somebody who's not ready to be yourself in these type of spaces. Because I will say, and just because I think highly of everyone in the community, that like we all fucks with each other, is that like we are who we are ourselves. We show up who you see on Zoom. Like I'm talking to you on Twitter, we jump on a Zoom. This don't even feel like the first time we've ever had a conversation like this. And it is, except for that one happy hour, but like it don't feel like that. But I think that's a testament to being yourself and showing up as your true self in your spaces. And a lot of times people want to adapt a persona, and not just anime content creators, I think content creators in general, because we see like content creators that become like influencers, and they have like a brand and they have like a personality. So a lot of people think, well, to be that, I need to have my own brand and my own personality. But if that's not really you, people are not gonna fuck with you. Like it just doesn't work out that way. It's very like, you have to be, look at me because I was sniffling because I was crying. You have to be willing, I think, to be a little bit vulnerable in any community, not just the anime community, but like in creative spaces. And I think that's where you really find your people, is when you give yourself permission to be vulnerable. And like we don't know the ins and outs of each other's lives. Like we're not out here just putting personal info or anything like that, but I still feel like I'd be like, Rob, I'm having this problem, like I could come to you or whatever, just because I know that you're really who you are behind all this stuff. It's just like the love. Before we shift over into, because me and you could talk forever, so we did talk about like the positives, and my listeners may remember you were also part of my New Year's special episode, which was awesome, because then I was like, I recorded all my answers before I listened to anybody else's answer. And then me and you had the same answers for like 5 of the questions. I was like, Rob, why are we so in sync? I literally was like, and I did it like I had a certain order which everyone would go. So then I didn't listen to anybody's answers until I put them together. So then I'm like, You was like, what's the biggest lesson? You like, shoot your shot. Then my audio, shoot your shot. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, Rob, me and you, we here. But we did talk about the positives, obviously with the content creation and the community and learning all of these things. What
Mhm.
would you say, not necessarily a negative, but a challenge that you encountered starting to create content? Because it's, this is all the good stuff, but there definitely are
Yeah.
challenges behind it.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'm trying to think like something that might have came up. I guess just kind of like realizing that it's okay to do things my way, just because I've listened to podcasts for freaking over a decade now, probably, and been watching YouTube videos and reviews and stuff, whatever. So it's like, consuming content sometimes can kind of like give you some type of like perception of like what you think it's supposed to be like, until you're actually the one creating the content. And then it's like, okay, I have this idea, but I don't really see nobody else doing it like this, whatever. And so, it was kind of like those early moments of like hesitation and things like that that kind of was bubbling up or whatever in my mind. And, it's definitely gotten better. Not to say that it doesn't still happen, but it's just kind of just realizing it's like, you know what? It's okay to go with your gut instinct on something, or it's okay to maybe be the only one of the first one to talk about a series and stuff. So, but yeah, I would say that's probably like the biggest thing for me, was just kind of getting over those mental hurdles of like, hey, yes, it's okay to be you and to just do what you do. Cause it's like, we are, our biggest critics and stuff. And so I know we definitely sometimes get in our own heads as far as like, man, was that episode that good? I'm not really, I don't know. Maybe nobody gonna listen. But then like when somebody actually comments on the video, it was like, hey, yo, thank you for talking about this series. I never even heard of it. I'm gonna go watch it, or I'm gonna go read that manga or whatever. And so it's kind of like just like that extra bit of like, hey, yes, you kind of decided to do your own thing. I guess in a weird way, kind of like got validated, so to speak, where it's like, hey, somebody pretty much was like, hey, yes, what you did, thumbs up, and so it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing my thing. But yeah, that's really the main thing for me, and nothing else too much crazy has happened yet.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
But that, I think that's so important too, is because I'm somebody that I also listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't listen to a lot of anime podcasts. And I tell all my people that have anime podcasts, like, I'll be like, listen, I have not listened to your podcast. And for me, mostly it's because I realize that I do this thing where it's not, you ever like get an idea and you like, oh, this original idea, and you're like, actually, I heard this somewhere else. And I feel like I'm somebody that it's like, I'm very like easily influenced. And if I love you and I support you, like I'm definitely like, well, Polo said this, so this is my, and I'm like, wait, those are not my original thoughts. So
Yes.
I usually like listen here and there randomly to like all my faves podcasts, but I don't always listen on a consistent basis, because sometimes I'm like, I can't always consume what like I want to create too, because then you start also like, one, comparing yourself. Two, you might also just be like, I want to do this, but it's like, well, did you really want to do that? Or are you doing this because X, Y, and Z is doing this, and X, Y, and Z is
Mhm.
doing that? And I always tell people, listen, I'll retweet every single tweet you talk about the podcast, but I'm be honest, I'm not listening to this episode because I know myself. And then I'm gonna be like, do I need to watch Dragon Ball Z? No, because you hate Dragon Ball. But sometimes, especially when it comes from people that you care about, and this is why I try to like always like, I'm like, Lisa, just stick to what you are, because I'll be like, damn, I heard this and this anime was good. And I'll be like, that anime has zero interest. Nothing in that anime would
Yeah.
ever be my taste. Why did I think because so and so tweeted this that this was gonna be for me? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you have to kind of have that strongness in you.
Yes, I definitely agree with you there, because as I've kind of been getting more into like doing like first impressions or like separate review stuff, whatever, I definitely will kind of like you said, kind of like stay away from either reading certain posts or listening to certain videos or whatever until I do it myself, put it out, and then I'll, maybe go back and, I'll bookmark some stuff or well, okay, I'm gonna come back and listen to this later, but not before I kind of give my perspective. Cause like you said, you don't kind of, in a way, you don't want to kind of like taint your own, poison your own water in a sense or whatever, where it's like, okay, are these my words or am I just kind of regurgitating what I heard somebody else say? So it's definitely kind of like a very fine line to walk, especially with just like how much stuff, like how many anime and manga and everything it is to, yeah, it can get messy very quickly.
Right. And I do the same thing where I will then like I'll write my review and then I'm like, all right, now I can read somebody else's review too. Because I think sometimes too, like it's not necessarily like that you're trying to like copy people or something like that, but literally sometimes somebody else brings out a point and then you forget who that point came from. And that happens a lot online where somebody's like, well, you copied this and it was like, maybe like it wasn't intentional. Like sometimes you just get ideas. Like I was today writing a review and I like thought of something and I'm like, yo, my girl said, I was like, let me check. Cause I feel like my girl said this in her blog post. She did. And I was like, then I went to my blog post and I was like my girl said, here's the link to her review. She pointed this out and I completely agree. And it's like, you like for me, I'm especially with my memory, if you're consuming so many things, I always rather be on the careful side. I'm going to do what I got to do first. Then I'll be like, all right, now I did my own review, my own thoughts, unfiltered. Let me go in and go in and then work on it. And this is going to transition perfectly into what we're going to move into. But the last point that I'll say is this time off that I've taken off social media has been so like eye-opening in that sense because I'm not seeing what anybody else is doing. And I feel as much as I'm not like a pressure person, sometimes you feel like things are going to expire or things aren't like timely anymore. And not being on social media, I just don't feel that way. Like you're going to get this anime episode. Oh, this anime came out 10 weeks ago. You're going to get the review now.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get into that.